probably recording because we're probably doing this live on. All right, we're live on Facebook, and I'm laughing because what I've noticed in watching the replays, me meditating just before we get going, since Monday through today, is really quite funny when I'm watching the replay. So my name is Pam, and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep, and today we're talking autism and sleep. Now, I'm going to start off by being unapologetic in my desire for you to get sleep tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not next year, but starting tonight, making improvements in your tiny human or school-age child or teenager and their sleep. I am going to apologize right up front because I know I'm going to F it up. And if you know Pam, yes, I use colorful language, and I hope that doesn't offend you, but we're broadcasting in March of 2021, and this year has been extremely challenging. You don't need me to tell you that, but raising children in today's society and today's era is even more challenging than ever. And I want all parents to get sleep, but particularly those parents that are raising children with neurodiversity. I hope I got that right because I know I'm going to screw up on the language. I have neurotypical children. In 2017, when I went to the Pediatric Sleep Conference, I was educated to say typically developing child. Now that's not allowed. So please forgive me when I make mistakes on the language, because I know that I'm going to, and my goal today is to inspire you to get sleep, because 50 to 80% of parents surveyed with children on the spectrum are suffering from insomnia and daytime sleepiness. So 50 to 80% of parents with children on the spectrum are complaining that their children are suffering from insomnia and daytime sleepiness. 50 to 80%. And those parents that were surveyed, they said the more disrupted the sleep is, the worse it is. And the more overwhelming and the more exhausted they felt, and really at a loss for how to care for their child during the day. So I'm really delighted that you're here with me. Again, my name is Pam. We're broadcasting live at Staples Spotlight. We're doing a Q&A. I've been doing a Q&A series all week, starting with newborns, and today we're talking autism. I'm here today to answer your sleepy questions, so I want you to start asking them in the event. Don't be shy. Any question that you have related to your child's sleep, I want to answer them. So we're going to kick off the session with, actually I'm just going to take a moment and I just really want to say thank you for being here. And I want to say thank you to all the families that have trusted me with their tiny human, the most beautiful gift that we're ever given as a parent, since 2009 when I first started the business. Recently, I met a dad who has a 21-year-old that is on the spectrum. He requires lots of support. Even today at 21, I can't imagine how hard it was when his child was a baby for he and his wife. So I know this might offend people. However, I really want all parents to get sleep, but I can't stress this enough. I was ready to jump off the bridge and take the baby with me in 2006, and my child was neurotypical. So my heart goes out to all families, but again, in particular this population. The thing I want to stress the most is that I feel strongly, and a beautiful woman out of Vanderbilt University feels the same, Dr. Beth Malow, or Beth Malow, sorry, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name, is she feels the same way, that with parental support, children on the spectrum can still learn how to sleep. So we're going to kick off the session with the first question, saying, my son ended up in bed as, and by the way, how did I get questions so fast? And this is a live stream, by the way, so apparently there's a 6 second delay. So the reason why I have my phone is my assistant in Vancouver is feeding me questions through WhatsApp. Now, when we said that we were going to do today's session, we reached out to my own personal network as well as other networks and asked, hey, what questions do you have? And give us to them and give us them. Oh my gosh, I have never tripped up so much. This tells you how important this topic is to me, because I love doing public speaking, but I really want to get it right for you folks. So we reached out to our networks and we said, hey, provide us some questions in advance so that we can prepare for today's Facebook Live. And many parents said, you know what, I want my question asked, but I won't be able to attend the event. So for those parents submitting questions in advance, thank you so much. So the first one we're kicking off with is, my son ended up in my bed a lot as it was the only way I felt we could both get some sleep. What are the pros, cons of this type of situation? Eventually, I moved into a room in the basement and he took the master bedroom as his own, as it also had the only bathroom in the house he would use. Hence, if he woke up in the night to use the bathroom, he woke me up as well. Such a great question. So basically, just like neurotypical children, how this parent ended up in this situation, I like to refer to it as accidental co-sleeping rather than intentional co-sleeping or bed sharing. You know, we can all use hindsight is 20/20, and in my own personal experience, I tried bringing my own son into bed so that he could get some sleep and I could get some sleep. So if you're using what I like to refer to as temporary tools or external strategies to help your child to sleep, you're in a safe environment here with Pam. There's no judgment. Now, what can happen though is that we can use that hindsight as 20/20 and help educate and empower others. So when I had my second child, I did things very differently. The problem with accidental co-sleeping is that it can create anxiety in the child related to sleep. And this is where you could end up with a co-occurrence, and I hope I got that right, where a child might have, autism, but also develop anxiety. So why would a child develop anxiety through accidental co-sleeping? Well, I love Dr. Ferber's revised edition, How to Solve Your Sleep Problems, not necessarily his method on how to get kids to sleep, but I love this analogy. Imagine you going to bed at night and you have a pillow. And later on that night, you discover that it's gone. Would you wake up and go and look for your pillow? Yeah, you would. Absolutely, right? So, and let's say this happened night after night after night after night, heading into bedtime. Would you develop a little bit of anxiety and have trouble initiating sleep because you might be wondering, hey, my pillow's here now, but when will it be gone? So that is the problem with accidental co-sleeping, whether you're a neurotypical family or a neurodiverse family. If you're doing, some of the research shows that if you are doing intentional co-sleeping and you start the night with your child and you spend the entire night with your child, then it's not a problem. But is that realistic and practical in today's society? No, It's not. We have a whole lot of stuff to do as parents, and as much as we say there's a village, there really isn't a village. And so we get our kids to sleep as fast as possible at the beginning of the night. I want that too, so that we can have time to connect with ourselves or connect with our partners, and also to have a little bit of downtime before we go to sleep. So I've had so many parents since 2009 call it the mom nap or the dad nap, where they'll fall asleep initially with the child and then go and do some much needed activities, and then that child is going to be waking up looking for their pillow, which is their parent. What also can happen with this population and neurotypical children as well is that we might get the child to fall asleep all by themselves with various external strategies, not the parent, let's say, but let's say melatonin works for a period of time. Let's say whatever external strategy it is to get the child to sleep. In my world, it was rocking my baby to sleep, nursing my baby to sleep, using a pacifier in order for my child to sleep, walking my child to sleep, driving my child to sleep. I used it all. I became very reliant on a swing. Well, the problem there is that the child is going to wake up and they're going to need whatever condition it was at that bedtime or something else to get them to return to sleep. So that the gift that I give parents every single day is this ability for their child to go from A, awake, to B, asleep, all by themselves. Now, if you're using various forms of external strategies, including accidental co-sleeping, then I want you to continue using them today, tonight, but I want you to investigate a system, and I don't want you to buy into the myth that your child could never learn to sleep well. I believe that they can. So if you've just joined me, my name is Pam, and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep. If you want sleep today, well, I've got a wicked contest that's available to you. Sarah, my assistant in Vancouver, is going to drop the link below. We're giving away $3,500 in prizes, including my sought-after newborn to school-age children packages, and you can also win I Heart Naps merchandise like my tank top that you see in front of me. Now, when you enter this contest, you'll learn a little bit about my own personal story and why I'm so passionate about sleep. And the more you donate to 2 charities, one in support of maternal mental health postpartum and one in support of adult mental health, the more you enter, the more chances you have to win. So I encourage you to click on the link below and you can win sleep. Now, perhaps you're viewing this and you're like, I don't need sleep, but my friend does or my sister does. Well, good news. All the prizes that are available to you are also fully transferable. So you can give it to a loved one if you prefer not using it yourself. All right, next great question. What about screen time before bed? What are your rules about when to shut off screen time? Oh, such a good question. Now, rules, the word rules, right? So what I've heard from parents, I've got a neurotypical child, but what I've heard from my friends and my clients that have children that are on the spectrum, these kids really appreciate routines and structure and even rules. So I like to call them boundaries, and we set limits around these things. Screen time is a really difficult one to set strong boundaries around. One of my favorite sleep researchers that I was introduced to is Dr. Ruth Gruber out of McGill University in Canada, where she has certain specifications around screen time. The last time I checked, she said that all screens should be off at 6 p.m. for children so that they're able to fall asleep easily and stay asleep easily. Is that necessarily always practical and realistic in today's society? I know it's challenging, especially when you're a parent and you've got a busy life and you're rushing and you're trying to get a whole bunch done during the day, and by the time dinner time rolls around and you're about to put your child to bed, we're all exhausted and stressed out after a day, and it becomes easier to rely on screen time. So my best advice is to take Dr. Ruth Gruber's advice and get that technology off by 6. And when we worked with a family recently, we had to look at their whole daytime in order to resolve bedtime. And so what we did for that family, mom and dad were relying on screen time after dinner so that they could just go, okay, just take a break here, kids, right? We need to clean up the kitchen. We need to get stuff done, right, after a busy day. What we did is we moved screen time up before dinner so that their children could get the screen time that they craved. Mom and dad could get a little bit of a break, get prepared for dinner, plus get a little bit of a break from their children, right? And then I think if I recall correctly from their sleep plan, is at around 6 o'clock, they didn't just gather up their children's technology, they gathered up their own. So in the 2019 sleep medicine conference that I attended, there was somebody who reported a study where children were wanting us to get off of screens just as much as we want them off their screens. So what I did for this family, and I've done this for many, many families, where we gather up all the technology, and one family recently even bought a safe and put a code on it and said to the kids, okay, mom and dad, our technology is also going to sleep right now, and it's locked up until morning. Now, once those kids were in bed, what do you think those parents did, even though it was contrary to my advice, because they would have got better sleep? Well, of course, once their kids were in bed, they were opening up the safe and getting their own gadgets, right? So you might have to rejig your whole daytime schedule to accommodate screen time, because I know I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old. I know how important screen time is, not only to my children, but to me too. I'll be honest, I've relied on screen time to be the parent so that I don't have to be the parent. No guilt, no shame, but are there better ways to handle this? Absolutely. And once you get that screens off, yes, it'll be easier for your child to fall asleep at the beginning of the night and maintain sleep throughout the night, because the science is there to support it. Yes, light impacts our sleep. Yes, those things are overstimulating our central nervous system. Yes, yes, yes. And even though there's hacks like these glasses, so Sarah's going to post a link below between my favorite glasses that you can wear at night, and I've gotten families that have purchased these glasses who want to be on screens after 6 to help with the blue light, and I got my own little pair of readers that I have that I use if I'm going to be on the phone in the evening to help with it. The best thing though, the very best for all of us, is to turn screens off even at 6. Professor Dr. Walker, who's one of my heroes, he says that not only using your phone at night it prevents you from sleeping well, not just from the blue light, but it also is anxiety producing, even in adults. So the best thing to do is to move screen time up earlier in the day so that you can shut it off at night, so it's easier for your child to fall asleep and maintain sleep. Now, if that screen time is part of your bedtime ritual, which quite often it is, even us adults, many parents report that they like watching TV before bed or being on their phones before bed. What you need to do when you remove it out of the equation, you need a system. You can't just tonight say, okay, no more screen time. What you need to do is find a system to help get buy-in from your children that it's going to be okay if they don't have screens at bedtime. And then you have to create something that's more rewarding, more exciting for those kids to embrace over their screens. So for example, with a family that we worked with recently, and this might sound counterintuitive, and I know it will, instead of being on screens in the evening, once they locked up their gadgets, they were racing those children up the stairs at bedtime, starting their bedtime routine, and instead of screen time and instead of snacks, we were doing a dance party. So mom and dad would put on some songs and these kids would dance it out. No, I'm not trying to burn out energy. I'm really just trying to make sleep fun for children so that they become in love with sleep. And so if it's a 5-year-old that learns this beautiful gift and vital life skill, when they're 10, 11, 12, 14, they'll be like, yes, bring it on. Sleep is the word. Now, when we work with families one at a time, we're diving deep into that family's history and that child's history. And so if we feel that having a chase me game or a dance party or hide and seek might not work with that family, of course we don't include that in our equation. All right, let's get to the next question. And if you've just tuned in, my name is Pam and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep. And I'm on live Facebook answering sleep questions relating to children and autism. On Monday, I started off the series with newborns. Tuesdays was infants. Wednesday was preschoolers and toddlers. And yesterday was school-aged children. You can go back and watch the replay and you can see the great questions and the great answers that came as a result. And if you have questions today regarding autism and sleep, I really want you to just drop those questions below so that we can start answering them right away. The other thing I want you to do is take part in our contest. Oh my goodness, our contest, and the link is below because you can win sleep. And if you haven't been here since the beginning, I want to apologize for two things. Well, first of all, I don't want to apologize for trying to inspire you to get sleep today. It is so vital and so important. I've become more passionate than ever since launching my business in 2009. Why? Because of the transformations that I've witnessed one at a time through our paid sleep consultation packages, as well as the research. I'm more convinced than ever that giving your child this beautiful gift and vital life skill is not a nice to do, it's a must to do in this busy North American society. All right, so please keep dropping in your questions. The next one we have is, what are the signs I need to watch for in regards to my child needing sleep or not getting enough sleep? Oh, I love this question. So you want to think of sleep, it's really your daytime behavior. Do you remember before you became a parent, when you got to go to bed, let's say at around 10 o'clock at night, and maybe you slept what you feel is necessary 8 hours, and you woke up at 6 a.m., let's say, and you didn't have any kind of uninterrupted sleep. You just slept solid. Can you remember what that felt like? Right? Did you wake up that morning? Some parents report the first night that they get a good night's sleep, they actually feel worse. But I'm saying, like, let's imagine you had the best sleep of your life. How do you feel? You feel great, right? Well, that is what you want for regardless of the age. So whether it's a baby, you want a baby waking up happy, you want a toddler waking up happily, you want a school-age child waking up happy, you want a teenager waking up happy, you want an adult waking up happy. I know it sounds impossible because many of the parents that I've worked with since 2009, they've reported that they had no idea how sleep deprived they were until they took my tips and techniques and applied it to themselves. So there's a woman where I live, her name is Teresa Bagley, and when I caught up with her recently, she said, Pam, I feel better in my 40s than I did in my 20s, all thanks to you. She took the tips and strategies that I gave her for her 2 children, she applied them to herself, and she feels best. So the best way to determine whether or not your child is getting enough sleep is based on their daytime behavior. Whether or not they're falling asleep and having micro sleeps like I used to in university. I had no idea how problematic that was. I was constantly doing the head bob thing. Yeah, and then by night, I couldn't fall asleep, and I was stealing Neocitrin out of my aunt's cupboard to help me initiate sleep at the beginning of the night when I was struggling. So if your child is resisting sleep at night, that's a sign they're not getting enough sleep. If they're trying to nap during the day, even doing the head bob kind of thing, that is a sign that they're not getting enough sleep. If they're more hyperactive, if they're like a whirling, dervish, Tasmanian devil, that's a sign that they're not getting enough sleep. What's really challenging in today's society is that sometimes, or many times, kids are being misdiagnosed with other things when it's really sleep related. So when it comes down to it, when you think of your health and well-being, we used to think that there was 3 pillars to good health: sleep, diet, and exercise. And many people still feel that that's the case. These are the 3 pillars to good health. I disagree, and I agree with Dr. Dement, who was one of the grandfathers of sleep medicine in North America, and Dr. Matthew Walker. Even Dr. Matthew Walker, and Sarah, if you could just post a link to Dr. Walker, he's amazing. You can watch his YouTube videos, you can get his book, Why We Sleep, you can do his master class. What I love most about Dr. Walker is that he breaks down sleep, sometimes a very complicated process, into relatable and usable analogies, and oh my gosh, he is so smart and so talented and also fun to listen to. So he used to believe, he's a leading sleep researcher out of Berkeley University in California, he used to believe that sleep was one of the 3 pillars. Now he will tell you that sleep, based on his research, is actually the foundation to good health. So I want you to think, and I apologize again for my language, shitty foundation, shitty house. The same applies to us. Shitty foundation, shitty house. So shitty health. So you want to have sleep as your foundation, and then diet and exercise is so much easier to achieve. And it's the same regardless of the age of the individual, whether it's a baby, a preschooler, a toddler, a school-age child, or even an adult. If you focus on the foundation first, then these things are so much easier. I hope that answers your question. Keep commenting below. And if you have just tuned in, my name is Pam, and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep, which was established in 2009, because honestly, I was ready to jump off the bridge and take my baby with me in 2006. My path led me to a consultant, and it forever changed my life. So I am honored to be here today answering your sleepy questions. Today our topic is autism and sleep. And yes, this population of children can learn this beautiful vital life skill and beautiful gift. And I want you to imagine waking up in the morning finally feeling in control. Because when my own neurotypical baby wasn't sleeping, I felt completely out of control. So I have a special connection to all parents, and I hope this doesn't offend people, but I have an even more desire for parents with children with unique circumstances like neurodiversibility, and I hope I got that right. I'm going to apologize yet again. If you've been watching from the beginning, I know I'm going to trip up on the language. Or parents that have kids with disabilities or kids with medical conditions. I want every child on this planet to have sleep, and I want parents to have sleep, but those with these unique challenges layered on top, I want them to have sleep even more so that they can wake up feeling well rested and in control no matter what curveball life throws at them. Okay, so we had a terrible time if we weren't at home. This is our next question, i.e. vacation and trying to get my child to sleep. Any tips? All right, so yes, I have lots of tips. What you need to do is recreate the same environment that you have at home. So, and really the first step in all cases, whether it's a baby, adult, or baby, toddler, preschooler, teenager, or an adult, you need to learn. Why do I always trip up on this thing, Matt? Okay, here we go. Matt is here at Staples with me, and he taught me how to use this earlier this week, and you can see I'm still working on it. Oh, look, he's even trying to come to my rescue. This man is amazing. Okay, so regardless of the age or adult, or regardless of the age of the individual, it really comes down to sleep hygiene, all right? It's creating a context of how you're going to prepare your child for sleep or yourself for sleep. One of the speakers at the Pediatric Sleep Medicine Conference said it best. Sleep is a learned behavior that can be unlearned and learned again. So the very first step that you have to do is recognize that sleep is a skill. And I was a child that didn't learn this vital life skill and beautiful gift as a child properly. And so it's caused me so many issues in my life, and it's one of the many reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do, and why I'm even more passionate to say, yes, given the right tools, given the right context, given the right support, I feel strongly that people can clean up their own sleep or teach their child to sleep. And this ability to go from A, awake, to B, asleep, all by themselves without any form of external strategies. Now, if you're using various forms of external strategies, such as rocking your baby to sleep, driving your child to sleep like I was, or even if your child is older and you're relying on external strategies like even CBD, I want you to continue using those external strategies for now. Do not take them away until you come up with a really solid game plan in order to help your child say goodbye to those external strategies. And I do believe strongly that you should, invite another part of your team into the equation, meaning a consultant or a coach, somebody that you can trust, help you implement this system, especially if you have a neurodiverse child, because it's hard enough to change these habits with neurotypical children. I would argue that it's even harder with neurodiverse ones because there's so many additional challenges at play here. So going back to this parent's great question, even if you're using external strategies when you're traveling, the very first step with all of us, I want you to imagine this being your baby climbing up the steps, the very first place to start is with space. So creating an optimal sleep environment is key. So yes, cool and dark, cave-like is key. Now what I found with kids on the spectrum, that they might want a little bit of light. Yes, light impacts our sleep. So we work with those families and we talk through that. And we might start off with brighter environments, but over time, we're dimming the lights. Dr. Beth Malow, who I mentioned earlier, Sarah's got a whole link to this wonderful series of videos There are about 5 hours total that you can sit down with your partner and you can watch. Oh my goodness, this woman, she's one of my heroes in sleep research and sleep practice. She knows her stuff. She started off as a sleep specialist with adults, and she was pulled into children on the spectrum. Why? Well, she's got 2 kids that are on the spectrum. So she knows her stuff. So I encourage you to watch her her series of videos to get better educated on the subject, and she's got some really great tips and ideas and behavioral interventions to help teach children go from A, awake to B, asleep all on their own, even if there's co-occurring issues at play. So if with space, you want it cool and dark. So if you're traveling, you want to create the same space that you have when you're at home. How can you do that with a smaller child? Well, I actually did my very first affiliate, and it's called Slumber Pod, and you can save $20. And this will work with children that are babies, preschoolers, and toddlers, so that you can create this cave-like environment, whether you're at home in your room sharing, or whether you're traveling, so that your child can get optimal sleep. When you're traveling, you still want to work with the science of sleep, getting your kid on the same sleep-wake schedule. And then once, what you need to do is develop some structure around sleep. Structure meaning routines. Having a consistent routine every single night at bedtime, and if your child's still napping, having a consistent routine at nap time. And when you're, say, on vacation, you're doing the same things when you're away than when you're at home. So if you're about to embark on teaching your child this vital life skill and beautiful gift, what I want you to think about is, oh man, I want to travel when things open up. I want to have fun with my kids. That's why we have kids in the first place. So I want to create rituals and routines that will not only work at home, but that will work when I'm in a hotel room, at a campground, at grandma's house, at grandpa's house, wherever I am. I want to make it easy peasy lemon squeezy on my child, as well as for me as a parent, so I can do it anywhere and with anybody. Then even if you haven't taught your child this vital life skill, you can still employ these first 3 steps of my system, and it still will make things a lot easier, even if you're still using various forms of external strategies to help them sleep. Okay? Let's move on. And I do have detailed travel tips available. Sarah can post the link to those. We even have a special one on Hawaii, because where I live, a lot of parents go to Hawaii. So we have lots of tips on travel. Please keep commenting below. And if you've just tuned in, my name is Pam, and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep. And we rescue families from the plight of sleep deprivation by giving parents the tools they need to teach their child go from A, awake to B, asleep, all by themselves. If you would like to get sleep today, well, I've got a contest, so you can just click on the link below. There's $3,500 worth of prizes to be given away, including my coveted I Heart Naps merchandise. I get lots of compliments on my brand. There's a reason why there's a heart, but I won't get into that because, hey, I want to get you guys sleepy, not talk about me and my brand. Okay, let's move on to the next question. We used melatonin for a few years for my son, and then it stopped working. Why did that happen, and do you hear that often from families? All the time, whether they're neurotypical or neurodiverse. My goal with all families is to be able to remove all external strategies, whatever they might be, so that the child can go from A, awake to B, asleep all by themselves. Now with this population of families that we're talking about, those with autism, oh my gosh, I want to work with, we take a very collaborative approach at Pam Nease Sleep. So if a doctor or a pediatrician or whatever professional is recommending the use of melatonin, then we use melatonin. And then we work together to wean that child off of melatonin. Both at the 2017 Pediatric Sleep Medicine Conference and the 2019 Pediatric Sleep Medicine Conference, melatonin is a hot button. And when you watch Dr. Beth Malow's videos, she'll talk. She was actually up here in Canada in 2014, and these videos are so good. So she even addresses the question around melatonin. We could probably spend hours talking about melatonin. Yes, it is the sleepy hormone. It helps promote sleep and maintain sleep. Some research actually says it's also our fat-burning hormone, so even more important for us to get good sleep. It not only helps with our sleep, but our overall physical health. So, some research says that the more melatonin you use, if you're using it as a supplementation sort of aspect, the less inclined your body is able to receive it over time, and it stops being effective. Some people also feel that it can have a rebound effect, much like, say, a headache drug. So you have a bad headache, you use a various form of medicine to help you with that headache, you treat the symptom rather than getting to the problem of why you're having headaches, you go off the medicine because you're feeling better and you're not getting headaches as much. Well, the headaches come back and even more severe. So I've had parents who have kind of gone through the trials and tribulations of melatonin, and if a parent is using it, we wean them off very gradually. And if there are other people in that circle of trust for that family, we take a very collaborative approach and we work together. Now, the other thing about melatonin, yes, we're getting into light therapy. What you can do to help increase the amount of melatonin in your child's body to release naturally and on its own, well, that's why everybody wants these kids off of screens, right? So if we circle back earlier to the question about when ideally we should be off screen time, it is before 6, ideally. The other thing that we can do to help with melatonin production is expose our bodies to natural light in the morning. So there's a really amazing gentleman out of Australia by the name of Dr. Michael Gradisar, and I hope I pronounced his name correctly. I met him originally, I didn't meet him, but I heard him speak in 2017 at this conference that I keep referring to. He was really concerned about teenagers and young adults unable to fall asleep early enough at night so that they could wake up and get to university and get to their jobs on time. He created these glasses to help promote light in the morning to reset the circadian rhythm and the biological clock so melatonin would be produced and released earlier. Sarah's going to provide a link below so that you can learn more about these glasses. So these are great hacks that we can use. We can use these glasses at night to help us so that we can sleep better and have melatonin in our bodies without the use of supplementation. And then perhaps we'll all be wearing these glasses one day in the morning so that we can help ourselves sleep better at night and our children. Now, I know that with neurodiverse children, you know, it might be challenging to get them to wear these glasses in the morning. I recognize that because of the sensory issues. However, I just wanted to mention it. What you can do, and I know it's hard, especially if you're waking up in the morning really tired yourself, is to get you and your child out in the morning and exposed to natural light to help create more melatonin to be produced later that evening. The other issue with melatonin is that quite often it promotes sleep, but in order to maintain sleep, it needs to be time released. And this is what Dr. Malow talks about in one of the videos, and maybe things are different now in 2021 because this was filmed in 2014, but the melatonin that was available on the market it wasn't time released. And in order for it to be time released, it's a pill, and then that can be challenging to get a child to take a pill versus a liquid. One last, I just want to think just a moment, is there anything else? Oh, and one more word. I love how she says this in one of her videos. Even if you're using some form of substance to help initiate sleep, like melatonin, it's like an antidepressant, okay? So with depression, statistically speaking, those people that use an antidepressant and therapy, they get better faster, right? So it's the same thing with melatonin. It will help, but it's not going to solve the problem long term. And the one last thing I want to talk about melatonin, and see, I could spend an hour just talking about melatonin, is that it's not regulated. So you really need to be careful about what you're purchasing. So I really want you to talk to a trusted medical professional before you go and buy an over-the-counter remedy. I couldn't track down the survey, but I think it was the 2019 conference, where there was some research done by a bunch of Canadian sleep specialists, researchers, and they looked at all the products available out there, people saying that there was melatonin in there. Sometimes none of those products didn't even have any melatonin. And because it's not regulated, what one product might say it's 1 milligram of melatonin, and the next one will say 1 milligram, but it's not exactly the same. Now, this again might have changed, but you might be going, okay, well, what melatonin that I should buy? Well, according to my notes, the company that this particular speaker recommended was Natural. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. It might be Natural. Now, she did say, no, I'm not sponsored or endorsed, or they haven't done any of my clinical trials. However, things might have changed. So that product might not be as reputable as it once was in 2019. So I want you to do your research on melatonin, and I want you to go to a qualified expert on the topic, because that is not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is providing behavioral interventions for parents to help remove external strategies at the beginning of the night with their children, so that these children can fall asleep easily. And once you remove these conditions at bedtime, then these children stop waking up in the night needing those conditions back, or different conditions, in order to return to sleep. That's my areas of expertise. And I have a system that I've been using since 2009 with families right across the globe. All right, so where do we go here? Do you have any experience with weighted blankets? I know some families have used them with success under proper supervision of an OT. So if you've just tuned in, my name is Pam Nease, and I'm the proud founder of Pam Nease Sleep, and we're talking about autism and sleep. So this parent just asked a really great question about weighted blankets. If you've got questions too, just drop them in the comments below, because I want to answer them. So weighted blankets, again, if it's working, keep using it with, and I love how this person asks, with supervision from the occupational therapist. I love that, because I do have concerns. I have safety concerns about weighted blankets. I have concerns about what are in these weighted blankets. Again, it's not my area of expertise, but if it's working, then keep using it, but don't keep adding. Don't look at a weighted blanket as a quick fix. It's not going to solve the problem if the child doesn't know how to go from A, awake, to B, asleep all by themselves. And with a family that I worked with, where their child was diagnosed with ADHD and autism spectrum in 2016, and you can read their testimonial on my website. When I checked in with Suzanne recently, I said, hey, did you use a weighted blanket? I don't recall you using a weighted blanket. And I said, I thought Will didn't like the pressure or the heat, that he liked to be cool. And she replied and she said, yes, you're right. He didn't like the feel of a weighted blanket. But what she did get, and we're going to drop the link below, is she did buy a sleep sock. And she went on to say that Will uses. He likes the feel of it. Plus, it also solved the problem of having the sheets fall off the bed in the middle of the night and him waking up because of it. So Sarah's going to pop the link below so that you can find out what this client used after our consultation period wrapped up. You can also read her testimonial on our website as well. And when I helped Suzanne, I think it was 2017, it's now 2021 if you're watching the replay of this video, and those children of hers are still sleeping like machines. All right, so let's carry on with the next great question. And if you've just tuned in, my name is Pam, and I want you to enter my contest so you can win sleep. Hey, I think we'd all agree, regardless of the age and stage of your child, it's the most beautiful gift that you can give them as well as yourself. And it's not selfish to want sleep, it's actually self-full. So I'm so glad that you're here with me, either live, watching this Facebook Live and asking your sleepy questions, or potentially tuning in and watching the replay. The next question is, what is the recommended amount of time my child should be sleeping every night? And the parent writes, they're 7 years old. So are there ranges for sleep? Absolutely. Just like adults, this myth that 8 hours is what every adult needs, well, it's actually a myth, and it came from one study in 1940, and it just went viral. Now everybody thinks that adults need 8 hours. Well, you actually, for adults, it's a range. Even Dr. Michael Bruce, who calls himself the sleep doctor, he says that all he requires is 6 hours and 30 minutes of sleep every single night. You talk to another adult and they say that they need 8 to 9 hours every single night. So amount is really important, but also is quality. If you're getting broken or fragmented sleep and you're waking up all night long and getting disrupted sleep, either as a baby, adult, or a child, that's not good. So I want you to focus not only on quantity, but also on quality. And you might also have a co-occurring condition. You might actually have a medical sleep disorder, such as sleep apnea. You can still deal with both the behavioral side as well as the medical side. And when I talk to people in the medical side of things, when you work with sleep hygiene, the behavioral side, it makes it so much easier to deal with any kind of medical condition. So for a 7-year-old, how does this parent know if they're getting enough sleep? Well, again, it's based on their daytime mood, disposition, and learning behavior. Now, having said that, okay, Mom, Dad, you're like, Pam, could you just tell me how much they need? Well, I firmly believe that all children, our goal should be 10 hours for a 7-year-old, okay? So what that means is that ideally, a 7-year-old should be going to bed at around 8 o'clock so that they're ready to get up in the morning on their own by 6. Now that might be a little bit early. Sorry, that's 10 hours. Sorry, I'm not very good at math. Now that might feel a little early to a parent, right? But if our goal is 10 hours, the benefit of having a child awake at 6 well rested, now you've got a lot of time to get ready for school, because I have so many parents that are complaining that their kids, they're pulling them out of bed at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and it's a real challenge to get those kids ready so that they can get those kids to either daycare or to school, and for the parent to get to work on time. So if our goal is to get 8 hours, 10 hours into our child, then they should have an 8 o'clock bedtime. Now, I've had 7-year-olds that require 11 hours of sleep, and I've had 7-year-olds that even require as high as 12. if you can imagine that, where these kids are going to bed at 7 and they're waking up at 7. And I know you're exhausted and you're tired, and I know that this sounds really dreamy in one way because you have 12 hours of uninterrupted time as a parent. But I also get that in North American society, having a 7-year-old and trying to fit everything in is really challenging, especially if you've got a team of specialists like a behavioural consultant, a speech language pathologist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, coming and helping with your neurodiverse child. Okay, so there is a range. It can be as low as 10 and in around 11 or 12. Do we see kids every single day getting 9 or even 8 or less? Yes, we see kids every single day getting insufficient amount of sleep and insufficient quality of sleep. So if I have a 7-year-old who is traditionally falling asleep at 11 o'clock at night, and our goal is 8 to get them into bed, thinking that they need 10 hours, we do something called bedtime fading. I don't want that child in bed at 8 o'clock trying to fall asleep, because that is going to contribute to anxiety, and they're going to spend 3 hours ruminating or coming in and out of the room trying to fall asleep. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the parent. There is something called time in bed and sleep efficiency that you want to take consideration of. Our brains are really powerful, and so you want your brain and your body, be it a baby, toddler, preschooler, school-age child, teenager, adult, for the sleep space, that bed, and as the child gets older, that bedroom, to only associate that environment with one thing only, and that's sleep. That when they go into that bedroom and when they go into that bed, it's going to be easier if all they are doing is equating that surface with where they go from A, awake, to B, asleep. So I would really recommend that if you are wanting to change your child's sleep habits and you want them in bed at 8, you don't start there. You start where they're at so that they can be successful and feel really good about themselves, and then you do what's known as bedtime fading. Now you might be wondering, well, how do I get to 8 o'clock? That's a 3-hour stretch. It's gonna take a long time. Depending on when we're working one-on-one with families, we might be dialing it back by only 15 minutes a week. Other times we're more aggressive and we're doing 30 minutes a week. Now, and we never jump to 45 minutes or 60, because I want that child to feel really good, and I want them to be really excited about going to bed, and I want to make it easier for them. What can be challenging is the parent, because I get it. We want our kids in bed by 8, not at 11. I get it, right? And then if they can't be on screens for 3 hours, what do we do with these children? I totally get it, right? So you're going to have to find things for those children to do, and I know it can be challenging, that is non-screen time, so that they're able to fall asleep easier and stay asleep easier, and then you work backwards to your desired goal of 8 o'clock, okay? So that your child can eventually get their required sleep needs. What's also important, and I know this is really, really hard, if a child is traditionally falling asleep at 11 and your desired wake-up time is 6 a.m., well, yes, in our behavioral sleep interventions that we do, we are asking those parents to wake up their child at 6:30 minimum or maximum, and oh, I know they're going to be grumpier, they're going to be miserable, they're going to be even more of a challenge to work with those wonderful other therapists that you might be employing, but I want you to think short-term pain, long-term gain, because it's really, this is too hard. It's way too big of a gap to go from 11 o'clock, if that's the child's history, to jump into where you want to land at 8 o'clock. It's not fair to you. If you were that individual, can you imagine lying in bed for 3 hours trying to fall asleep? And many of us do this on the night before we're going to hop on a plane. We try to go to bed earlier so that we can get up for that 4 a.m. Well, it never works. We end up lying there, not able to fall asleep, and sometimes we even fall asleep later. So I want you to think of that when you start tweaking and changing your child's sleep habits. I do want you to work with nature and get them the recommended amount and the recommended quality, but I don't want you to start here if your child is here. I hope that makes sense. Please keep asking your questions. Oh my gosh, it's already 1 o'clock. All right, so before we wrap up and we say, okay, this is it, one last story I want to share with you, and this was a question that came in. Okay, again, coming back to the melatonin. Why is it not okay to use melatonin? Again, it's a temporary tool. I want you to use it. And if you're feeling any kind of guilt or shame about the things that you're employing to get your child into sleep or maintain sleep, I want you to let that go. Because even though sleep is a growing problem and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and there's been an insidious epidemic happening for years that nobody's talking about, even though it's a growing problem and it's getting worse and worse and worse, it's not a new problem. Like if we look back to Victorian times, people were giving their children a form of opium in order to sleep. It's called laudanum. So if you're feeling any kind of guilt or shame around how your child is sleeping, please let that go. You are a great parent. You are doing all the right things for your child, and you can find other systems to improve things. Just like those coaches that you're using during the day on the behavioral interventions, such as a speech-language pathologist, I encourage you, especially for this population, that you search out a coach that can champion you and help you get your child sleeping so you can get sleep too. Now, the only thing I want you to keep in mind is that I want you to be, I really want you to do your due diligence, because the sleep coaching industry that I'm a part of is unregulated and unlicensed. And I mentioned Dr. Michael Gradisar earlier. I'm going to post another link to an article that I read this morning, and you know what? I agree with him. I agree with him. So I'm going to close that way. I encourage you to read that article, and if you're curious to know more about me and what I do and my philosophy and how I'm carving out things very differently in this industry, I invite you to read my bio on my website. Now, a heads up, some people have said, Pam, it's way too long, it's a novel. Well, I say no, I want it to be a novel because I want parents to be educated, not just about me, but what about the industry, because it's tiny fingers, it's tiny toes, it's tiny human life, and I take that really seriously, especially because sometimes parents, like I once was in 2006, are in very vulnerable situations. So I take this very seriously. I'm not selling water bottles. So thank you for tuning in. If you got feedback for me, please share it with me. You can do it publicly, or you can send me an email at getsleep@PamNeaseSleep, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for joining me today or watching the replay. Bye for now. Okay, Matt, that's a wrap. I hope that got in there.